This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Friday, the 19th day of April in the year 2024. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here's what we're tracking tonight. High Court Judge Sandal Kisun has shut down the government's plans to deduct money from the salaries of teachers who were on strike earlier this year by declaring that the strike was legal and justified, and the right to strike is enshrined in the Constitution of Guyana. The judge also slammed the government's decision to discontinue deducting union dues from the salaries of teachers for the union as arbitrary, unilateral, unconstitutional, and discriminatory. In his 4-hour-long decision, the judge analyzed the laws and the Constitution of Guyana, in addition to a number of landmark judgments and judicial reports, as well as the evidence that was presented to the court. During the earlier hearing of the matter, Attorney General Anil Nandlal had argued that while there was the freedom to strike, there was no right to strike under the Constitution, and as such the common law principle of no work, no pay was justifiably applied by the government. Justice Kisun rejected that argument in its entirety. The judge said the right to strike, like the right to engage in collective bargaining, is firmly embedded in the fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed to every citizen of the country under the Constitution. On the issue of collective bargaining, Justice Kisun found that the Ministry of Education and the government failed to engage in collective bargaining, despite the best efforts of the union to engage in negotiations on its proposed multi-year agreement for the period 2019 to 2023, which includes the critical issue of wages and salaries. Justice Kisun said that between 2020 and the days leading up to the strike back in February, letters were sent to every conceivable person in authority by the union, including the president, and there was no evidence of a response, with the exception of the belated response of the permanent secretary of the Education Ministry and the chief labor officer. The judge also said the president meeting with educators in the absence of union representatives could not be seen as any form of collective bargaining. He said many of the decisions taken by the government were unilateral. In the case of the chief labor officer, Justice Kisun said there was no evidence that he conducted a single inquiry to ascertain when the multi-year proposal was submitted by the union and whether the two sides had initiated negotiations. The judge said instead the chief labor officer, relying only on correspondences from the government, concluded that the conditions for conciliation and arbitration had not been met when those were requested by the union. The judge concluded that the government, including by the actions of the chief labor officer, had created a condition for industrial action, given its refusal to engage in collective bargaining and the matters directly related to wages and salaries. He said the teachers lifted their voices and they asked for bread and were given stones instead. Justice Kisun said the Chief Education Officer, Saddam Hussein, was not full and frank with the court during his appearance in an attempt to justify the actions of the Ministry of Education. The judge said under the scrutiny of cross-examination, Mr. Hussein bordered on tarnishing the reputation of his office, adding that the evidence presented to the court constituted a misrepresentation of the facts and was found to be inaccurate and self-serving, and was further intended to deceive the court. The judge said the evidence of the CEO cannot be acted upon or relied upon by the court. The court also found that a letter of the permanent secretary of the Education Ministry dated the 6th of February, which was addressed to the president of the Teachers Union, included a number of grave allegations of criminal nature, which were made against the General Secretary of the GTU, without any evidence, and communicated government's decision to discontinue the deduction of union dues from the salaries of teachers. He said those allegations and the contentions and the assertions erroneously, arbitrarily, and unilaterally informed a decision based on a false premise, which is unlawful and has to be struck down. The court also found that the evidence presented by the second vice president of the GTU, Julian Cambridge, was credible and direct. However, he said while Mr. Cambridge was unable to address certain issues regarding discussions between the union and the Education Ministry, concerns raised were laid to rest when the Chief Education Officer was cross-examined by Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, who represented the Guyana Trades Union Congress in the matter. The attorneys for the Guyana Teachers Union and the Guyana Trades Union Congress have welcomed the decision of the court. Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford.
This is a very significant and historic ruling. You would have seen the erudition that the judge would have displayed in delivering this decision. It is a marathon decision delivered, I believe, running just under 4 hours. The court, in its decision, was able to answer the questions which would have been asked by Mr. Wade, representing the Teachers Union, and on my behalf, representing the Trade Unions Congress, which is whether in all the circumstances of the case and the law that currently exists, whether there was a right to strike as enshrined in the Constitution of Guyana. For the first time, the court would have determined authoritatively that there exists a right to strike in Guyana.
And the president of the Guyana Teachers Union, Mark Light, said he's pleased with the ruling and he believes it is now time for the government to act properly.
This is a red letter day for my executives and I and the teachers of Guyana, and a landmark ruling by the court which sets the parameter for other unions in this country to take stand as it relates to the injustice that their workers are facing also. As we have seen over the last several years, we've had a lot of impositions, and the other unions are equally crying out for collective bargaining. So I believe that this ruling will give the voices of teachers, voices of the workers of Guyana, an opportunity to be heard.
Mr. Light said if the government continues to ignore the union and its request for collective bargaining, it could find itself facing not only additional court action, but a much larger strike. More news coming up in just a moment.
It's one of your biggest goals, getting your own home, where memories are made, where happiness lives. You may feel that home ownership or renovation is beyond your reach, but we at Republic want you to know that there's always a way. Ask us about our suite of mortgages. Let's help make your housing wishes come true. Or advise on how the equity in your existing home can finance other dreams and goals. Call or go online to learn more.
It's time for the official Linden Town Week Big People Party. This year, Big Man Tour Skylark. Join Go Mosley Entertainment on Thursday the 2nd of May at the Mackenzie Bandstand for 5 big bands: Stitchy, Super Ray, Murphy, the Castro Brothers, and for the first time in Linden, the one-woman band Queen Makiba.
But when I see what I was getting, boy, I start to shiver, cause I know I'm gonna be able to get me young boy.
Plus DJ Granny Ivy will be live. Party like never before. It's a one-man band and one-woman band fete for Linden Town Week, Thursday the 2nd of May at the Mackenzie Bandstand. Big Man Tour Skylark. Compliments of GTT, Sheriff Security, 592 Tees, Banks Beer, Guinness, and XM Rums. Drink responsibly for the official Linden Town Week Big People Party. Big Man Tour Skylark.
Holiday spending put a dent in your cash. Top up your pockets in the Cash Splash promotion. Win over $5 million, including over $1 million in our weekly draws. Just purchase any Buster, Turbo, Fruiter, school kids or Viva, look for the 8-digit code starting with 786. Then visit Facebook or IG at Buster Guyana or Turbo_Caribbean for more details.
Welcome back. Let's tell you now that Attorney General Anil Nandlal has vowed to appeal today's decision of the High Court, which found that it was unconstitutional for the government to deduct or withhold the salaries of teachers who had engaged in industrial action, arguing that the court's decision was bad in law. The Attorney General made the government's intention known moments after High Court Judge Sanil Kissoon handed down his ruling.
Certainly, and not unexpectedly, the government will appeal. In my view, the judge, in that very marathon judgment, has committed grave and substantial errors in large numbers, and I say so with the greatest of respect.
The Attorney General said Justice Kissoon, in handing down his decision, admitted that the pleadings presented by the GTU in the case could not withstand judicial scrutiny, and it is on that basis that the application filed by the union should have been dismissed.
Now that is a major issue. If a judge forms that view, that should be the end of the case. It's either that or we abolish the principles and rules of pleadings, because pleadings is that mechanism by which you present a case.
According to the Attorney General, instead of dismissing the application, the judge went to great lengths to find justifiable reasons to hear the case. Throughout the case, the Attorney General argued that while there is freedom to strike under the Constitution, there is no right to strike, and that such a principle of no work, no pay was applicable. He maintains that position.
What the judge has found is that you have a right to strike, and in doing so he has misread the Constitution. He has equated the term freedom with right, but he has not addressed the other repercussions, because now you will have striking workers who are going to be compensated for work not done. What you have done there is that you have turned the law upside down, because the monies that you are going to be paid with for exercising this alleged right which you now have is the monies of the employer. The employer has money, means property in law. Money includes property. The employer has a right to protection of his property.
The Attorney General said the ruling by the judge has grave implications for labor relations in the country and cannot be left unchallenged. He also argued that the decision by the High Court that it was also unconstitutional for the government to stop the deduction of union dues from the salaries of teachers on behalf of the union was bad in law. He intends to challenge that decision as well, even if it means taking the case right up to the Caribbean Court of Justice. The Alliance for Change today hammered the majority decision of the Public Procurement Commission not to take action in the award of that $865 million Bellevue pump station contract, although several breaches were found in the award of the contract. The contract was awarded to the Tupui Company, which is managed by social media talk show host Michael Rodriguez, also known as the Guyanese Critic. The AFC said it found the report to be shamelessly objectionable, unfair, and yet another knockdown of a guardrail of democracy. The opposition party accused the Public Procurement Committee's published report of ignoring the minority recommendation of 2 members of the commission that the project be retendered. The Alliance for Change noted that all 5 commissioners of the Public Procurement Commission agreed that the Tupui Company was guilty of serious evaluation disqualifications. The party said the minority recommendation which is not captured in the summary of findings by the Public Procurement Commission's report, and that was that the Tupui bid must be deemed non-responsive and should be retendered. The Alliance for Change said it is also amazing that a bid which did not meet any of the evaluation criteria could have been passed by the Evaluation Committee, then the Tender Board, and then find blessings and approval by the Cabinet.
The AFC does not know the names of the members of the Evaluation Committee. However, their names must not be an official secret. The public has a right to know who they are. The AFC is aware that the head of the NEMPATAB is Mr. Tarachan Balgobin, who has a senior advisorial role at the Ministry of Finance as Deputy National Authorizing Officer and head of its Public Investment Unit. A conflict of interest is most noticeable here. It is well known too that Tipui's owner is a close friend of Vice President Jagdeo. There is an undoubted confluence of interest and relationships here that mattered more than the merits of the Tipui bid.
According to the Alliance for Change, it believes that the majority recommendation of the Public Procurement Commission only ruined matters more when it determined that it cannot propose any remedial action. The Alliance for Change said it finds the legal advice of privity of contract by 3 of the commissioners to allow the award to be an abomination and an abdication of their duty to protect against fraud and corruption in procurement matters.
Hi, my name is Keisha Davis, first of 4 siblings. I'm a mom of 3 and I'm an auditor.
My brother Tariq is a transgender man, which means he was born female but now lives as a man. He's always known himself to be.
He's great at math. I'm horrible. And he actually helps my 12-year-old daughter with her math. As soon as he gets home at night, he'll say, "Jazz, let's go. What would you like me to help you with?" She actually got a prize in school for full score at math and English. Tariq is my rock. Like, honestly, my confidant. No matter what it is, no matter how horrible it might look through others' eyes, he doesn't judge. And he is there to support me, to support my kids. I don't know what I would do without him.
Linden, it's time for the official Linden Town Week Big People Party. This year, Big Man Tour Skylark. Join Go Mosley Entertainment on Thursday the 2nd of May at the Mackenzie Bandstand for 5 big bands: Stitchy, Super Ray, Murphy, the Castro Brothers, and for the first time in Linden, the one-woman band Queen Makiba.
But when I see what I was getting, boy, I start to shiver, cause I know I'm unable with that. Give me young boy.
Plus DJ Granny Ivy will be live. Party like never before. It's a one-man band and one-woman band fete for Linden Town Week, Thursday the 2nd of May at the Mackenzie Bandstand. Big Man Tour Skylark. Compliments of GTT, Sheriff Security, 592 Tees, Banks Beer, Guinness, and XM Rum. Drink responsibly for the official Linden Town Week Big People Party. Big Man Tour Skylark.
Mobil 1 is more than oil. It's many oils. It transforms at the molecular level. When cold, it's thicker than honey. When hot, it's thinner than water. Mobil 1 adapts and readapts to last longer. 16,000 kilometers between oil changes. That's your engine evolved.
Sol Guyana is the authorized distributor of Mobil lubricants.
While the Guyana government today rejected several statements made against it by the International Decade of People of African Descent Assembly Guyana at the UN Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, which took place in Geneva. At the same forum, Ipadaji accused the government of systematic racism and told the forum that the Guyana government is openly practicing discrimination against Afro-Guyanese. The forum heard earlier this week from the Ipadaji CEO Olive Sampson and its legal representatives Nigel Hughes and Darren Wade. They had told the UN forum that Afro-Guyanese are not benefiting as much from the country's oil resources and that there is discrimination in the allocation of government contracts and certain basic government services. Today, delivering closing remarks at the forum on behalf of the Guyana government, Tourism Minister Onej Waldron said while the government respects the right of Ipadaji to make its statement before the forum, the statements were baseless.
As the government of Guyana, our truth is that we reject entirely as false and baseless the allegations made at this session by representatives of Ipadaji. Our truth is that African Guyanese organizations under Ipadaji's umbrella complained to us that they were not receiving benefits from the $500 million government provided to Ipadaji.
Minister Waldron also told the UN forum that the government of Guyana found that resources it provided to Ipadaji to advance the cause of Afro-Guyanese were used to cover administrative costs at its offices. She said it was against that backdrop that the government decided to provide financing directly to the beneficiary organizations. Ipadaji has repeatedly denied the government's position.
So they will speak their truth and we must speak ours. We expect that the United Nations and its institutions, as objective and impartial observers, will draw their own conclusions. It is self-evident that institutions of the UN can only be successful if they enjoy the confidence of all legitimate stakeholders, including member states and representatives of civil society.
Minister Waldron also said the government of Guyana remains unwavering and unshaken in its support to the UN Forum for its work in realizing the full respect for people of African descent. Opposition spokesperson on foreign affairs and member of parliament Amanza Walton Desir believes CARICOM needs to send a more direct message to Venezuela over its latest actions to claim Guyana's Essequibo region. Appearing on Alex Arjun's The GAF podcast, MP Walton Desir said CARICOM has got to do more than just bemoan the passage of the recent piece of legislation by the Venezuelan government in defense of Guyana's Essequibo.
Maduro has to be told in no uncertain terms by CARICOM that he is wrong and that you cannot do this and that you have to desist from this course of action, because that is what is warranted. This is unprecedented in this part of the world, that you pass a decree and annex or purport to annex 2/3 of your neighbor's territory. It's unheard of, and it requires the egregious nature of the action requires a far more sturdy and a far stronger response than we are seeing.
Since Maduro's latest actions against Guyana to strengthen his claim of Guyana's Essequibo region, condemnation has poured in. The Commonwealth of Nations, the Organization of American States, and CARICOM have all made known their objections to and their rejection of the new Venezuelan legislation. The UN Security Council also discussed the issue following a request by Guyana. In a statement, the UN Security Council called on both Guyana and Venezuela to exercise maximum restraint, reminding the two countries of their obligations to comply with the order of provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice in December of last year. The opposition MP Walton Desir said Guyana must also take a much firmer position on how it deals with Venezuela.
So it has to be a strategy of reliance on the international community, which we are doing. But we have to abandon this whole notion of appeasement. It doesn't work. We saw Irfan Ali making a big demonstration of presenting to Maduro, rum as a sign of good faith. Maduro, even prior to that, never deviated from his course of action. There should be no exchanging of gifts in the first place. There seems to be a reluctance to understand that this is an adversary. And whilst you will not be belligerent, because Guyana has never been that, we've never been the aggressor, our posture has to say that we understand that this is somebody that wants 2/3 of our territory.
Warden Desir said she also believes the Venezuelan ambassador to Guyana should have been summoned and a letter of protest should have been given to him by the government over the recent actions of Venezuela. She once again called on the Guyana government to have regular meetings with the opposition on the issue and to also have regular meetings of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Relations. The opposition MP said she has written several letters to the foreign minister requesting a meeting of the parliamentary committee, but the foreign minister remains mute on that issue.
Look at the breathtaking beauty of the Essequibo, from its pristine rivers to its abundant resources. It's a treasure that belongs to Guyana, and we ask Venezuela to respect the rule of international law.
Our commitment to this land is not just about ownership. It's about preserving its beauty and resources for our people and future generations.
The controversy between Guyana and Venezuela was settled internationally as full, perfect, and final in 1899. Essequibo belongs to Guyana.
Guyana's economy is rapidly transforming, and we're all part of it. Guyana is at the forefront of this development by providing reliable and efficient energy and supporting community development from the very core. 100% of Guyana's profit goes back to building schools, roads, and other important infrastructure that connects our cities and towns, providing fuel to domestic, marine, industrial, and aerial transportation. Guyana has now repositioned itself as a market leader in the petroleum industry, building a better future for all of us.
It's one of your biggest goals, getting your own home, where memories are made, where happiness lives. You may feel that home ownership or renovation is beyond your reach, but we at Republic want you to know that there's always a way. Ask us about our suite of mortgages. Let's help make your housing wishes come true. Or advise on how the equity in your existing home can finance other dreams and goals. Call or go online to learn more.
Holiday spending put a dent in your cash. Top up your pockets in the Cash Splash promotion. Win over $5 million, including over $1 million in our weekly draws. Just purchase any Buster, Turbo, Fruita, Cool Kids or Viva. Look for the 8-digit code starting with 786. Then visit Facebook or IG at Buster Guyana or Turbo_Caribbean for more details.
Across the region tonight, let's begin in Brazil, where the state-run energy company Petrobras has hit growing resistance from indigenous groups and government agencies to its premier exploration project, which would open the most promising part of Brazil's northern coast to oil drilling. The environmental agency in Brazil denied Petrobras a license for exploratory drilling offshore the area last year, citing possible impacts on indigenous groups and the sensitive coastal area. But the Petrobras appeal to reverse its decision had drawn powerful political backing. President Lula da Silva back in September said that Brazil should be able to research the region's potential resources, given the national interest. That statement bolstered the rhetoric from Petrobras about its chances of getting a license to drill in the blocks offshore the coast. But in the past days, the resistance has been growing in Brazil, and the indigenous community and indigenous villages across the country have been speaking out against any such move. The Ministry of Energy in Trinidad and Tobago has said that a decision by the U.S. government to reimpose sanctions on Venezuela's oil and gas sector does not affect the special amended license that was issued to the government of Trinidad back in 2023. That license, which was issued by the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the U.S. Treasury Department, authorizes Trinidad and Tobago and its state-owned National Gas Company and their affiliates to conduct business with the government of Venezuela and its state-owned energy company. The statement by the Ministry of Energy came hours after an announcement from Washington that the Biden administration had reimposed energy sanctions on Venezuela. The U.S. government's action is being seen as an attempt to punish President Nicolas Maduro's attempts to consolidate his rule just 6 months after the U.S. eased restrictions in a bid to support now fading hopes for a democratic opening in the OPEC nation. And finally tonight, international news. After months of delays, the U.S. House of Representatives appears poised to hold a vote on tens of billions of dollars in American military aid for Ukraine and Israel this weekend. Both measures have vocal opponents in Congress. However, their hopes of passage have hinged on a fragile bipartisan coalition to overcome daunting procedural and legislative obstacles in their way, reports the BBC. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has said he is determined to bring the matter to a vote, even if it may put his hold on power in jeopardy. The Ukraine vote will be closely watched in Kiev, which has warned of the urgent need for fresh support from its allies as Russia makes steady gains on the battlefield. Mr. Johnson's foreign aid proposal provides $60.8 billion to Ukraine and $26.4 billion to Israel, and an $8.1 billion to the Indo-Pacific region, including Taiwan. The House of Representatives will vote on each component individually, raising the possibility that some components will be approved and others will fail. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight and this week. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, encouraging you to have a safe and enjoyable weekend.